If you're looking for a reason to jump back into Fallout 4 and honestly just have an absurd amount of new content added to your game, then you clicked on the right video. Today we're talking about the Fens Sheriff's Department, aka the Bleachers 2, aka the single largest mod to ever come to Fallout 4. This mod features over 10,000 lines of voiced dialogue. Fallout 4 overall has 111,000 lines of voiced dialogue, and that includes the voiced protagonist. This mod is literally 10% the size of the entire game. And what you're going to have with the Fens Sheriff's Department is an incredibly compelling story told across several parts. The first part of which is going to be the Bleachers. This is included as a part of the overall mod download, but it's an already released mod. This came out back in 2019, and really in its own right, this first part is amazing. It's going to integrate a completely new section of Diamond City, that being in, you guessed it, the Bleachers. Here you'll meet some interesting and wacky new characters, go on some quests with them, and just have a general introduction to this location and almost faction that is formed up here. In many ways, this is the prequel to the overarching story we have here, and if you already experienced the Bleachers in the past, don't worry, because the Fens Sheriff's Department does have a holotape, so you could jump past all of that old content and get directly into the new content. But if you never played the Bleachers, definitely do that. And the story will continue directly after the events of the Bleachers, introducing you more properly into the Fens Sheriff Department. Diamond City now has a powerful and relevant force to defend it. Although this is going to be a quest-focused mod, you will notice some changes and new locations around Diamond City itself, including some very formidable-looking patrols around the city. The previous Diamond City security are largely gone, and now some mechanized and far better equipped units are patrolling the Great Green Jewel. During these initial quests with the faction, you'll be on a mission of revenge and gradually become antiquated with some of the members of the Sheriff's Department. But as you're doing this, things will very quickly pick up and get pretty serious. One of the pretty cool parts about this mod is, on a high level, it features a ton of integrations with Fallout 4's existing factions and locations, but not necessarily in the same method of some of the other overhaul mods out there. There are several mods already that will give you options to complete or beat Fallout 4 in a different method with a different faction, typically siding with a mod-made faction, and although that is incredibly fun and interesting, that's not what the Fens Sheriff's Department is trying to do. Instead, you're going to be directly interacting with the major factions of Fallout 4 on behalf of the Sheriff Department, and in some ways on behalf of Diamond City. You're not trying to beat the game, but instead directly serving the interests of this Sheriff Department, which have their own ideals and goals. And some of those ideals and some of those goals involve the Gunners and really the Institute specifically. Carrying on that theme of Diamond City overall, the Sheriff Department will have some very strong feelings about the Institute. A nice chunk of this mod will involve fighting them. And it's not like this is just casually taking on a couple of Gen 1 synths from time to time. No, you will be heading up full-on raids at the Institute at new locations they have in the world. Some of these are incredibly memorable, but you'll also be hearing quite a bit on the side of synth stories, which I loved. You probably remember this iconic scene in Diamond City with two people claiming the other person was a synth and the whole town gathers to watch. Well, with this mod, you're going to have that almost in an expanded way. Several quests you'll go on will involve you investigating synth replacements. Typical Wastelanders who were usurped and replaced by a synth copy. These little synth replacement stories are incredibly compelling. You get to see and hear firsthand how these synth replacements have impacted people. Sometimes it'll just be raiders who are now frustrated with a new synth leader, and other times it is entire families or friend groups that are devastated to discover one of them is a synth. And this is one of those things the mod does really well. It introduces you to this faction of the Fens Sheriff's Department, and instead of just forcing you to hate the Institute or giving you an alternative way to beat Fallout 4 and destroy the Institute, this mod will instead genuinely and gradually over time make you hate the Institute. You will grow attached to some of these new Sheriff Department characters, and over time and experiences with them, you begin to hold the same exact disdain they have for the synths. You do have options here. You can choose not to do certain things at certain points, but it's through the storytelling and some of the quests you go on that you do begin to actually hold the same feeling as the overall faction, and I really enjoyed this. I feel like it did a much better job than just, okay, immediately the Institute are all the bad guys now, and you have to agree with us because you're siding with this faction. This one actually plays out relatively slowly over time with a gradual buildup, so you actually can form your own feelings. And the story overall is going to be super well ingrained in the Fallout 4 lore. The Fens Sheriff Department itself was founded by former Brotherhood of Steel members, and over time you'll get to learn why those people left the Brotherhood of Steel and how their ideals are similar but with key differences. At numerous points you're going to be fending off against the Gunners. And one of the cool parts about the storyline here is you do the familiar raiding of existing Fallout 4 locations with some kind of new quest objective in it. So you're kind of just clearing out the same place you've cleared out tens of times before, but now there's something different you have to do at the center. But this mod only does that some of the time, as other times you have completely new experiences at new locations against familiar factions. At one point in the story, the gunners attack a certain base. The Fens Sheriff's Department is very interested in relieving the gunners of control of that base, so you're going to be tasked with doing this, and the way you do it is epic. You and several other Sheriff's Department members are going to stealthily walk there in power armor underwater, and even just when you start this mission specifically has to be at nighttime because it is a stealth attack. This felt completely awesome and far more memorable than just clearing out the castle against gunners for the 100th time. And even when you do return to some of those familiar locations, this mod brings them with some unique twists to make those combat encounters far more interesting and compelling. I know though you will be encountering many of the familiar Fallout 4 factions, there's also some completely new factions added with this mod. There's a new group of raiders with some hilarious themes integrated here. This isn't lazily added either. These are a new group of raiders with custom armors and even some custom weapons added in that you can get for yourself. And there will be plenty of twists on certain enemies or other factions you encounter. But even that still isn't everything, at least not from a questline perspective, as this mod also has a full-fledged companion questline, and that is a very well done companion. I don't want to spoil too much on this front, but there's a pretty absurd amount of custom quest content here. And across the story told by this mod, I feel like one of the things the Fens Sheriff's Department really excels at is the gradual build-up and alignment you'll have, even after you complete the entirety of the prologue. And do a couple of quests for the Sheriff's Department itself, they're not going to immediately trust you. These are very secure people, and you're going to have to spend quite a bit of time working with them before they really let you into that inner circle. This will have an impact on the overall story, but also which locations you can access. There's going to be certain clues of character backstory that are introduced to you relatively early, but the full story doesn't come out until you've done several missions with these people, actually spent several hours with them in game. And this makes those big reveals, or when you actually get to learn more about them, far more rewarding and impactful. As at that point, you already have thoughts and feelings on many of the characters, so when you have a new big revelation on them, it just hits a bit different. And although this mod does feature 10,000 voice lines of dialogue, these quests aren't just talking. Like, yeah, there's a fair share of talking, and even many of these scenes have custom work done for them to make them feel unique and memorable, but there's also plenty of clearing new locations, finding things, or even taking on bounties. This is not just a talking simulator, but a nice mix of that familiar Fallout 4 gameplay loop with a ton of custom content added on top. And speaking of custom content, there is a bunch of new areas added into the back of Diamond City with this one. The Bleachers is a full-fledged new location to explore. You can get your own player home here, but it's going to take some time. You're going to have to do some quests here before you unlock everything, but when you do, it is actually quite rewarding. A lot of the new rooms added with this aren't just haphazardly added, but actually have a fair amount of custom content placed within them. There's a pretty extreme attention to detail at making some of these new places feel unique, as they will feature custom set pieces and custom made items to be placed around that really make them feel more alive and make you believe the story these people are telling. And this mod does feature some pretty epic rewards that you will earn. You have this set of power armor as well as some new and custom weapons. And sometimes if even all of that wasn't enough, this mod is just funny. I had numerous laughs while playing this one, and overall I thought the quests were quite well written with a fair share of humor, twists, and just general serious moments. Overall, the Fens Sheriff's Department is a massive mod. I played this for over 10 hours and did not complete everything. And depending on your playstyle, I could easily see this being a 15 to 20 hour experience top to bottom for some people. That is a ridiculous amount of new content that you can download totally for free. And just in general, I feel like this is an awesome mod because it really does flesh out Diamond City in such a major way. Makes it feel like much more of a hub in the Commonwealth. But with that said, if you're interested in checking out the Fens Sheriff's Department, you can find a link to download it down below. And a huge shout out to Monkey Spunk for sending me this mod early, even though my video on it came well after the mod's release. And if you are interested in checking out some other Fallout 4 mods, I have this video on the top 10 mods to come out in 2022. Otherwise, I thank you all again for watching, and I hope to see you all later.